Support for The Common comes from the law firm of Davis Malm, representing HR personnel, businesses, executives, and individuals, gives Davis Malm's employment lawyers a 360-degree view of every workplace situation. Learn more at davismalm.com.
WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and you're listening to The Common. When a 2022 Supreme Court ruling ended nationwide protections for abortion access, Massachusetts abortion rights advocates predicted an influx of people from out of state seeking abortions. Well, WBUR reporter Martha Biebinger found out they were right. She recently reported that the number of people who obtained abortion care from providers in Massachusetts was up at least 37% in 2023. And that increase was mostly driven by a nearly seven-fold rise in patients from outside the state. So we got Martha here to talk about it. Hello, Martha.
Hello, Daryl.
And we have Dr. Angel Foster, co-founder of Cambridge Reproductive Health Consultants, which has launched the Massachusetts Medication Abortion Access Project, or the MAP. The project has shipped abortion drugs to more than 7,000 people since September 2023, 95% of whom live in states where abortion has been banned or subject to severe restrictions. Dr. Angel Foster, hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you both for being here. So, Dr. Foster, I want to start with you. Tell us more about the MAP and the services you provide.
Well, the Massachusetts Medication Abortion Access Project is a shield law practice based in Massachusetts.
And what's shield law?
So in the summer of 2022, after the Dobbs decision, the Massachusetts legislature passed an act which is affectionately known as the Massachusetts Shield Law. And the shield law does a number of things. It protects providers, helpers, and funders who offer or provide abortion or gender-affirming care in the Commonwealth to patients who travel from other states. It protects patient information and patient records for those patients who come to Massachusetts. But importantly for our service, the Massachusetts Shield Law effectively redefined the location of telemedicine abortion care. And so if the clinician is licensed in Massachusetts, lives in Massachusetts, and is practicing from Massachusetts, then medication abortion care through telemedicine is considered to be in Massachusetts, and the patient is considered a resident of Massachusetts for the purposes of that care. And so effectively, telemedicine abortion care is now located with the clinician. And so as long as we are providing legally compliant care that comports with the laws, policies, and regulations of the Commonwealth, we can provide that care to patients who are in other states.
Got it. Now, I have to note, I hear some kind of bird in the background. What was that?
Well, I'm actually in Sydney, Australia right now, so it's about 6 o'clock in the morning, and these are the morning birds that come out every morning and are quite delightful and loud.
Okay. We got some extra special guests here with us. Give us the details of what exactly you do. What's a typical day like for you?
So we're an asynchronous medication abortion service, which means that the patient comes to our website, fills out an initial welcome form, and from that we determine basic eligibility based on chronological age, gestational age, and residence. Assuming that the patient is eligible, they receive a link to a medical questionnaire as well as 2 consent forms. And once the patient completes the consent forms and the medical questionnaire, one of our 4 prescribing clinicians reviews the material, determines if the patient is eligible for medication abortion care. If the patient is eligible, we inform them of that, and then they pay a fee and we send the pills. If the clinician has questions or needs more information, we then have the opportunity to follow up with patients in a synchronous way, so by phone, text, or email, to get more information to determine whether the patient can get care from our service.
Understood.
And we ship medication abortion pills using mifepristone and misoprostol to patients who are requesting service from any U.S. state, any U.S. territory, and from military personnel and their dependents living on a military installation or with a military address. And we use the U.S. Postal Service to send our packages.
Thank you for breaking down what you do and everything that's related to that. So, with all that in mind, I would love for you to tell us what the last several weeks have been like for you in light of Trump's recent election. And in fact, just kind of like take us through the whole year up until this moment.
We launched on International Safe Abortion Day in September of 2023. We launched and sent our first pills out in early October. And in our first year, we cared for almost 5,000 patients. And toward the end of that year, we were caring for about 500 patients a month. Our patients were largely, as you mentioned, from ban-restricted and telemedicine banned states. But what was also really telling about our patient population is that many of them were living on low incomes. So in our first year, our model was that we priced our service at $250, but we used a pay-what-you-can model and really just trusted patients to pay what they were able to afford. And we found that a third of our patients paid $25 or less, and about 2/3 of our patients needed subsidies. And because of the research that we did with our patients and what we learned about financial precarity, we then sought financial support from philanthropy to shift our pricing model. And we did that on October 1st. And so because a foundation was able to support the operations cost of our practice, we were able to change our model so we now effectively ask patients to pay $5 or more rather than $250 or less.
What kind of increase are you seeing in your services in these last few weeks?
Sure. So I mentioned that we start with a kind of welcome form. And in the couple of days before the election, so November 4th and November 5th, the day of the election, we were getting about 120 or 130 people a day that were completing that welcome screen.
Yep.
And on November 6th, we had more than 1,000 people complete that welcome screen. And that doesn't mean that everybody buys pills, but it gives a sense of the surge that we had experienced. And I say that after having already done quite a big ramp up of our service in October. So November has been very busy for us. We have been providing an awful lot of care to an awful lot of patients. But one of the things that was really striking is the shift in requests for pills for use in the future. So we have always offered pills for immediate use and for future use. Only about 1% of our patients up until this month had actually been procuring pills for use in the future. After the election, we saw requests go up. So now about 50% of people were requesting pills for future use. And it looks like about a third of the pills that we actually have shipped in November are for future use.
People are stocking up because I guess we don't know what's going to happen when it comes to reproductive rights. I want to jump to Martha real quick because, you're hitting on this increase in demand. And, Martha just reported that in 2023, the numbers went up nearly 40%. Martha, can you talk to us more about that?
Yes, and most of it was driven by the request from out-of-state patients. So we didn't see a huge change in the number of Massachusetts residents seeking abortions. We did not see a big increase in that. But we did see a big increase in the number of people who were either coming here or taking advantage of a service like the one Dr. Foster provides, where they seek an abortion, filling out forms or over the phone or video calls, that sort of thing.
And what did you find among providers when you were out reporting? How were they handling this increase?
Well, a lot of the increase is among people who are providing medication-assisted abortions, the 2 pills that Dr. Foster described, and they are doing it either over the phone or in some combination of a virtual visit and an in-person visit. I mean, we've been seeing a shift to abortions that are completed using medications for some time. What we see in the Massachusetts numbers is that those are now 65% of all the abortions reported to Massachusetts in 2023.
Does this put any sort of strain or stress on facilities like the MAP, resources, workload? What does that do to your operations?
It has been a challenging couple of weeks. We were very prepared for the increase we anticipated and ultimately had in October and had planned accordingly. everything from how our office staff is managed to the way that our clinicians were managing the questionnaires to the supply that we had in our office. We were taken aback by the surge in requests after the election results were announced, so starting November 6th. And it's been a little bit of a struggle to have that big of a surge that quickly has meant that we've had to, try to do a lot of things operationally to get people the care that they want, need, and deserve as quickly as possible.
Dr. Foster, I think one way you are dealing with the increased demand for these services is by really leaning on your volunteers. Is that right?
That's correct. Since pretty much the beginning, we have had packing parties where volunteers come to our office and help put together the materials that we send to our patients. So in addition to the pills, we send patients a number of resources as well as a handwritten card. And for most of the first year, we held monthly packing parties, but we've now started to hold weekly packing parties. And in November, we've actually had a couple of emergency packing parties in order to be able to accommodate the increase in volume.
Are you personally worried about your freedom and well-being while doing this work?
We are certainly watching closely and carefully a number of things during this transition period, and will, of course, watch closely and carefully what happens after January 20th to see whether or not we will be able to continue as a practice. Our intention is to continue as a practice, and I will continue to be involved with the MAP until we are no longer able to be a legally compliant practice that is part of the formal healthcare system. We don't know what is going to happen in the upcoming months, but there are some things that the Trump administration could do that could make our operations difficult. And there are scenarios where we would need to close down. And so we're just going to have to watch and wait.
Understood. Well, I want to take a quick break, but when we get back, Martha, I want to talk a bit about the opposition to where Massachusetts sits in this. So we'll be right back.
I'm Meghna Chakrabarty, host of On Point. At a time when the world is more complex than ever, On Point's daily deep dive conversation takes the time to make the world more intelligible. From the state of democracy to how artificial intelligence is transforming the way we live and work to the wonders of the natural world. One topic each day, one rich and nuanced exploration. That's On Point from WBUR. Be sure to follow us right here in your podcast feed.
And we're back with WBUR reporter Martha Biebinger and co-founder of Cambridge Reproductive Health Consultants, Dr. Angel Foster. So, Martha, we are talking about the increase in people seeking abortion care here in Massachusetts. A lot of that is nearly 40% increase, and a lot of that is driven by people from out of state. There's a lot of folks who are opposed to abortion, and they have exercised a great deal of political power, especially in 2022 with that Supreme Court decision. What are you hearing from anti-abortion advocates?
They are really horrified by the idea that Massachusetts might be seen as a haven for people seeking an abortion. And, some of the people who oppose abortion think that will ratchet up action and energy among their supporters.
So what are they going to do?
Well, there's a lot of tension between pregnancy resource centers, which are clinics in some cases, not always, but sometimes they're registered health clinics, where women are counseled about ways to maintain a pregnancy, to not seek an abortion. Pregnancy resource centers in Massachusetts, because there have been allegations that they are deceptive in the kind of care and advice that they provide, they have been targeted by the Healey administration with certain warning labels for consumers. The people who run those really feel under attack by the Healey administration, and there has been some violence at some of those centers. So there's a real dichotomy here in the state between people who support an alternative to abortions and people who are really trying to expand access to abortions, and the idea that the numbers numbers are increasing, I think is just going to inflame those tensions.
Yeah, and we just had an anti-abortion protest not too long
We
ago
did.
that resulted in
this
some
past
arrests.
weekend.
There was a
Yep.
protest, counter-protest. Folks got arrested.
Yep.
Dr. Foster, I'm curious to know what type of hostilities have you experienced while doing this work?
Since launching the MAP, we haven't experienced any hostility. We have been tremendously supported, from our packing parties to the fundraiser and fundraising parties that people throw, to the way that we've been invited to share information about our service and different platforms. It's been incredible. And we've had a wonderful relationship with different government agencies, the governor's office, the attorney general's office, and the Department of Public Health. Everyone who's involved with the MAP has gone through, a lot of discussions, often with lawyers, about different kinds of protections, the different kinds of risks that we, especially those of us who are identified as being part of the MAP, are willing to take. As an example, I will not travel to or through ban or restricted states, and I don't drive a car outside of Massachusetts anymore. And those are ways to minimize, my engagement with law enforcement and the potential to be served papers, for example.
I want to go back to what you just said about you don't drive a car outside of Massachusetts and you don't travel to states where abortions are banned. What have those precautions cost you, if anything?
I think the biggest thing for me is that my mom and stepdad live in South Carolina, and so I'm no longer able to visit them. And that's been hard. My mom's older, she's had some health issues, but I talk closely with my family, and everyone is supportive of what I do. So this is a sacrifice everyone is willing to make.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. What is something that you want people to keep in mind as we move into what appears to be an uncertain future for reproductive rights?
I think the first thing is that telemedicine is certainly here to stay. It is now a part of the abortion landscape in the United States. As much as 20% of all abortions now in the United States are through telemedicine. Shield law providers are providing 10,000 abortions to patients in ban and restricted states each month. And even if there are restrictions or changes that come out of the Trump administration, I am very confident in our field's ability to innovate and come up with new ways to provide safe, effective, affordable, and acceptable abortion care. Having said that, these are challenging times, and it's going to be challenging for abortion access, over the next few months, over the next few years as we navigate the Trump administration. And so while I am cautiously optimistic about the resilience of our field, we also need to be incredibly diligent in moving forward with as many sort of proactive and reproductive health rights and justice protective measures as we can, and really supporting each other as we innovate.
And Martha, what will you be looking out for?
Well, I think that innovation we're going to see that on both sides of this debate. Dr. Foster was hinting at some of the ways that the Trump administration could interfere with the mailing of pills, or withdrawing FDA approval for one of the two medications that is used in the current protocol. I think we're going to see a lot of innovation among people who are really opposed to abortion and want to find ways to stop all that whole process on the ground as well as at the policy level. So there's a lot of energy around this issue, as there always has been, and we're really just going to see that, I think, explode in many ways over the next few months.
But Martha, to your comment about the kind of innovations that may come from the anti-abortion rights folks, I think what we've seen is that doesn't limit the number of abortions. It creates challenges to access, but people will still need abortions and people will still get them.
Well, thank you both for coming through to talk to us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for having me.
And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening to The Common. If you want to get in touch with us, hit us up on Instagram at WBUR The Common. You can also send us an email at thecommon@wbur.org. And now, it is that time for me to let you know that The Common is produced by Franny Monahan, it's mixed by Emily Jankowski and Paul Vaitkus, and it's edited by Samantha Joshi and Ben Brock Johnson. And our theme music is Me, from Hisu. And from the newsroom of WBUR, I'm your host, Daryl C. Murphy. I'll talk to you next week.